Hey everyone, JCETI Greg Sullivan here with CE-5 Inside, and we're talking about disclosure, ET contact, and ascension. What's a CE-5 slam dunk versus a foul ball? This is an interesting metaphor that so many of these topics came via inspiration in the field. A lot of people who have tried their own field work will recognize what I'm talking about here, and this is something common to so many circles in the world. It'll also be helpful for those who are trying to organize their own groups in kind of appeasing the doubter, this is a process. So many people are results-oriented in their approach, and the fact that we're promising real contact is going to definitely attract people who take that in slightly the wrong way. And we need to constantly remind them about the process-oriented element of this work. And also what I'm about to describe ties the ET phenomenon to tangible results for the group. So the fact that you saw something or something occurred in the field doesn't always mean that it registers. So this is this difference in perception that I'd like to talk about with sort of a sports metaphor. It's a slam dunk and a foul ball, basketball and baseball there. So what's the slam dunk? Of course, this is such an ecstatic experience where it's the time when everyone in the field gets it. You know, something happens where everyone is either triggered into being interested, like, they realize something happened. They don't know what it was. But I'd say a slam dunk is when everyone not only recognizes the phenomenon as being anomalous, but also exactly catches the meaning at the same time. You know, it's an undeniable experience, and it's an unforgettable experience at the same time. This is an indication of the coherence level at any given time in the field as well. So if that happens quite early on, you can know that you're primed to go. The pump is primed, and there could be a lot more contact coming, if not a lot potentially closer contact coming. So once you get used to the rhythm, the sort of tempo of doing work in the field, it makes it easier and easier to gauge the coherence level of the group. That's sort of something it's the wall that many people have trouble with, this perceptual wall that exists where we're trying to connect with the world we can't see, and therefore we're not getting results. But once you do kind of start to see yourself more objectively, the results actually flow faster. And then you know that you're on the right track. So it is the feedback coming from the ships in the form of phenomenon is the ultimate barometer. And with your level of coherence and awareness of the group as a total, the level of directness also will increase from the ships and the guides, the ETI, the phenomenon. So I noticed that I always say it starts off in the periphery of our vision, so to speak. The phenomenon starts off in the periphery of perception and starts to slowly come in more and more directly into a 90-degree angle with the group. So to induce that or to prime the conditions that make that possible is, of course, the CTS image training, and all different sorts of work to get the group on the same page energetically. It's almost like a formula, and once you repeat this enough, you realize that it's almost like a repeatable formula where X plus Y equals Z. So, the Y factor being the ETs they're always in standby. They're really there a lot of times, and we just can't see them, and they're in stealth mode. So if we increase our X factor, which is the part we can do, then that result, that is the Z element, the Z vector, it just becomes easier and easier to manifest. Of course, what I just described is the ideal situation, and most of the time people aren't there that fast. That could take a certain group, a new group. It could take them a few gatherings. It could take them a few months of gatherings. It could take a year or two of gatherings. You never know. I think the process itself is speeding up in total as we go into this year of 2020, a very powerful year for everyone. But let's describe the experience that most people have, whether it's learning a new language, learning a new sport, or, in your early days of development with any skill, is there will be foul balls. And this is more coming especially at the new group leaders, where it's a situation where not just the entire group missed something, but where that half the group missed something, or you've got maybe just one strong doubting personality in the group that's pulling the whole group down energetically. That's not a judgment on the person, but it's almost like a mathematical equation. If you don't have a certain percentage of this light quotient, you can't break through to the other side, so to speak. Again, it's essentially an indicator of a coherence. So the foul ball is when something shoots across the sky and people who have been in this group for a few weeks immediately recognize that as a response to one of their thoughts. They had a direct experience with the phenomenon, whereas a brand new person immediately deferred that into just a regular meteor or shooting star. So the fact that there could be an alleged meteor, or the slight subtle differences between the way a ship moves, an ET craft moves versus a satellite or a meteor, they haven't recognized that yet. That can be a stumbling block. And at times, especially in a place like Japan here, if that's an elderly male or someone with a strong personality, they can actually convince younger people or potentially other people who have the experience but are not firmly grounded in it yet. They can be swayed out of the magic, so that's again another potential thing that the group leaders have to deal with. So this is not just a personal problem at that point. It's the groups. We all are dealing with the contact phenomenon as a group. So at that time, it would be very poignant to point out the subtle differences, and also I immediately ask for another appearance. Not just to appease the person who's not sure yet, but just to increase the group's energy to keep the flow going up in an upward spiral instead of stalling out. The tricky thing here is that although that person is affecting the group, it is really their lack of personal coherence. So the ET guides work quite closely with the group as a total, and it is a compounding effect where the person will eventually be rolled into the total positive energy. But with this foul ball experience, there is always that time where you're just getting warmed up and something happens, and a mistaken identification or a so-called false negative, where the phenomenon was ET, but it was not recognized by this person, and therefore was disregarded or even criticized. That criticism then can go into the entire work, and while you're in the field work in real time, that is a very detrimental input. Dr. Greer described, even just having garbage around this field site, this sattva energy is the positive energy. That's the opposite force in Hindi, thymus, I think, which pulls down. The subtle energy element is so important in the field, you realize. So it's important to objectively comment on or give insight to a potential new beginner person in the field at that time. So the group itself is actually holding space for, and the ET guides are holding space for these type of people to have a breakthrough experience. And I have definitely seen that occur right in front of my eyes, not with someone who actually missed something. I've seen this in the fact that like a person going from first event, second event, third event, and by the third event, they're actually breaking through into third eye sight in real time in the field, and the ships are working with that person, training that person in real time. And I remember it was this couple, and the wife was so surprised. Well, what? Where do you see that? What do you mean? And they were literally flashing, every few seconds. And this guy's like, there. I see it there. There's one now above that mountain, and here, And the wife was blown away. Other people were very impressed. So that was I've had all sorts of ranges of these experiences of human perception and with the phenomenon. Of course, this is also involved with like the soul timing and people's timing with the phenomenon. So you can't really rush that as well, I find. When they're ready to get it, they're ready to get it. I find that people, usually a brand new person who's open to the work and is actually coming to the field site, coming to the field work, it's going to be, first time, second time, or third time. The first 3 times seem to be the charm, When the foul ball occurs and 1 or 2 people either miss or misidentify the sighting, it's not that they didn't see it, it's they didn't recognize it to be ET. So they actually saw the light, they saw the flash, but they weren't ready to accept that that was a ship. We have so much programming that says a UFO has to be able to steal object that's flying at a certain height, a certain distance, and making a certain sound with certain lights flashing. Undoing that programming takes time, and the field work is sort of the best kind of lab. It's the scientific lab experience that helps unravel that. But you've got people with different experience levels. It's like a class in elementary school. Children at their different level of proficiency is different in the same class. So being the teacher of that class or the group leader requires patience with those who aren't versed in reading the phenomenon yet and being able to describe in a balanced way. The one thing you do not want to have happen is an argument to ensue in the field. That can be immediately a buzzkill, because it's this subtle ambient energy that helps lift the group onto this sort of magic carpet, and then you have that boom, that takeoff experience where you flip over the coherence line and this line of resonance, and then from there on out it's all downhill. So keep in mind that it is contact work, and depending on your location and the different factors in the field, it might be tough at first. It's not easy meditating at night outside. It's not easy if you haven't ever guided a meditation. Use the audio and the contact app. If you don't feel comfortable doing something, it's good to challenge yourself, but don't push it so far where you're going to hiccup and not be able to guide the work at all. So it's a fine balance, trial and error. Find your limits, push your limits, test yourself, and then the guides will respond to that work. Get out of your comfort zone. It's all of us getting out of our comfort zone, and that will always lead to the best results. So in conclusion, we must really review what are the goals always. What are the goals for why are we doing this work? What are the goals of contact? And keeping those in mind helps us be open and having the right channel vector to actual direct contact. The pipeline itself is still quite small because the ETs don't want to get in the way of everyone else's free will that might be in the area. There may be military surveillance occurring near the field or around the area. There's several reasons why they might not appear at a certain time or appear in a certain way on the opposite end of the spectrum. So being understanding of those factors and being open to information that comes that describes why that was the case, you will occur. So you'll find that although you had a flurry of activity, it suddenly goes quiet. And then within 5 minutes, you've got a plane that flies low overhead, or suddenly someone comes into the field site. I had an instance where I had an emergency warning coming through synchronicity 4 or 5 times on the way to a field work in Okinawa. On the plane, I saw it on the bus. My eyes kept hitting an emergency exit sign. And it ended up that night, for the very rare experience for Japan, is that we had a drunk person stumble into our site, and he claimed it was his nightly hangout spot, so we were in his way. So I kind of I tried to digress, but he was adamant. So we had to move our location a few meters in a different direction. So the guides are very sensitive to. Once you're in that flow, they're very sensitive to supporting the group and giving you key information. So be open to that flow. And remember that this is not results-driven work. It is a flow. It is a process. So this slam dunk versus the foul ball, I don't want anyone to think that nothing but a slam dunk is good. That's not the case at all. We're slowly building. Every brick in the wall is a good step forward for the group and your project, your own work. I always joke and say, point ga tamaru in Japanese. In Japanese, the electronic stores and a lot of stores have point cards. And I tell people, even though you didn't really see anything tonight, maybe, or even though you didn't really get it, potentially, I'll promise you that points are being collected. Your energy points are always going up. The fact that you came out, participated, were there in body, mind, and spirit means a ton, and it will always connect to further future experiences. So don't be discouraged. And definitely a greater understanding of the total picture will become visible in time. Okay, thanks a lot. This was this installment of CE-5 Inside, the CE-5 slam dunk versus the foul ball. Play with that. Use this as a metaphor. And I hope you have a great contact work. See you again. Thanks. Bye-bye. Please hit like, subscribe, and there's other related links in the description below. Coming at you from Tokyo, Japan. See you again. Bye-bye.